Charles Martin says that his next fight will be against Jared Anderson, Daniel Dubois, or Lenier. Now, Martin has been out of action since September last year when he scored a 4th-round knockout win over Devin Vargas. Prior to that, he fought in January last year against Luis Ortiz, and he lost that fight by TKO in 6 after dropping Ortiz twice. He's now 36 years of age. He says he wants to become 2-time heavyweight champion, and he's willing to fight whoever out there in order to get the opportunity. Now, the 3 fighters he mentioned, Jared Anderson, Daniel Dubois, and Lenier. Jared Anderson, I think, would just destroy Charles Martin. I don't even see that as being particularly competitive. Anderson does have somewhat of a leaky defense, and Charles Martin can bang a bit, so I guess we have to give Martin at least a puncher's chance against Jared Anderson, but realistically, I see that as 80-20 in Jared Anderson's favor in terms of what percentage I would give each guy of winning. Daniel Dubois looked vulnerable in his last fight against the Southpaw. I want to pick Dubois against Charles Martin. I still think he's got enough to beat him, but again, with that vulnerability, particularly to a Southpaw left, anything can happen. And obviously that is an opportunity for Charles Martin to win a version of a world heavyweight title. Daniel Dubois holds the WBA regular belt. And then the last name that Charles Martin mentioned, Lenier, a Cuban heavyweight who's unbeaten at the moment, 9-0 with 6 KOs. I've had a look at him. He doesn't look that impressive to me. His biggest win to date was in his last fight, very recently in fact, where he beat Victor Faust. Now, Victor Faust, real name is Victor Vikrist. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but I'm going to say Vikrist. But he goes by the ring name Victor Faust. Back in the days, it was very common for fighters to have ring names for various reasons. Some of them didn't want their family to know that they boxed, so they'd use a different name. These days, it's not so common. Most fighters use their real name to fight under. But just to give you an example of one guy back in the days, a British fighter who used the ring name, Crawford Ashley. Okay, that was his ring name. This was a light heavyweight guy. I think he was from Leeds. Actually used to spar Peter Fury. He was a real good puncher, Crawford Ashley. Fought Nicky Piper back in the days. Crawford Ashley's real name was Paul Crawford. For whatever reason, he used the ring name Crawford Ashley. So that's an example. Anyway, Pero beat Victor Vikrist, or Victor Faust, if you want to use his ring name, in his last fight. Faust is no great shakes from what I've seen of him. If we just have a look at his BoxRec page for a second, big, strong guy, hits hard, but he went life and death with Yago Kaladze last year. Both guys were on the canvas several times. That's actually a really good fight to watch. That's one of the wildest 2-round fights you will see, right? Was Victor Faust against Yago Kaladze. Kaladze was really upset that they stopped the fight when they did. He felt he could have gone on. He actually shoved the referee, I seem to remember, when the referee stopped it, because, he felt like he'd been jobbed. So, I saw that fight there, and I wasn't impressed with what I saw from Faust. Easy to hit, looks vulnerable, and he came back from that. He still won the Kaladze fight, fought Kevin Johnson, Franklin Lawrence, and then lost to Lenier, the Cuban heavyweight. So, as Cuban heavyweights go, he doesn't look as skilled as a Luis Ortiz or an Odlanier Solis, the Cuban heavyweights that we've seen in the past. He looks a bit more crude. Maybe he's tough, and you really have to be tough if you're going to get anywhere in the heavyweight division and you're crude. You better be a tough guy. So he looks relatively crude for a Cuban heavyweight. Southpaw, not particularly slick, can bang a little bit. I think that based on what I've seen, this is the most winnable fight for Charles Martin. It would be against Lenier. That fight right there, do I want to say it's a 50-50? It really depends on what Charles Martin has got left. If Charles Martin can fight as well as he did against Luis Ortiz, and I know he lost against Luis Ortiz, I think that might be enough to beat based on what I've seen of him. But if he's diminished since then, maybe Pero can get him out of there. Maybe Pero can get the victory. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know a lot of you are not going to be interested at all in the career of Charles Martin from here on in, but you know, this is heavyweight boxing, and sometimes when you've got guys, or oftentimes when you've got guys who aren't at the highest level, they can still produce entertaining fights. I mean, Charles Martin's bout against Luis Ortiz was entertaining, was it not? Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.